Some people hear the phrase silent treatment and think it's harmless, a moment of withdrawal or some sort of cooling off period. But when silence is used in abusive dynamics, it's actually used to control, confuse, and destabilize you. It's something else entirely. It often follows when you set a boundary or have a disagreement, or there was a moment when you said something that they did not like. And they follow with the silent treatment. They go quiet. And for those that struggle with emotional abandonment, this strikes a nerve, a pain at a deep wound that many of us struggle to name. So you seek to repair, to bridge the silence, not the topic that started the silent treatment from the abuser, but the absence of connection with them. This is how the silent treatment manipulates and controls you, because to reconnect, you're left with no choice but to abandon the boundary or position you held in the disagreement. Because in the silence, there was no effort from your abuser to come to a mutual understanding. That's the focus of today's episode, where we unpack the silent treatment as a tactic to manipulate and control in toxic relationships. We'll look at three different ways that it tends to show up in these relationships and how it rewires you to fear disconnection more than disrespect. This is Stand Again, a lived experience platform for men healing from family violence. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Your voice may just help another man find his. So, what is the silent treatment? Silent treatment in an abusive dynamic is used as both a weapon and a way to skirt accountability through stonewalling. Sometimes they're used at the same time. The tactic at its core is quite simple. The abuser stops talking. Typically, there's a clear indicator to show their displeasure, like sulking or pouting or feigned emotional injury, or even a quiet simmering anger. Most typically, it follows a period when the abuser is faced with something they are not comfortable with, and they want to punish you for wanting to engage in a conversation on that topic. This can be the establishment of a boundary, setting an expectation, or a disagreement they don't want to resolve. Rather uniquely, they can also use the silent treatment without a direct input from you. When it comes out of nowhere, it's usually designed to destabilize you, have you second guessing what the supposed wrong was that you need to fix. And that's actually why they do it. When silent treatment is used as a weapon, it's used to destabilize you, to make you feel unsafe, to keep you guessing. There's no explanation, no clear path to repair, just a cold withdrawal that communicates you no longer deserve connection. For those where withdrawal or connection strikes a painful nerve, the silence sends you into an emotional tailspin. You overanalyze every interaction, trying to figure out what to repair. You try harder to make things right. You blame yourself for the distance, and you internalize the withdrawal as your fault. Here, the function of this silence is power. It allows them to watch you squirm, apologize, and beg without needing to say a word. There is also a nuance to be mindful of. When you set a boundary or express your needs and are met with silent treatment, it can be mistaken for a trauma response. Some partners genuinely do go quiet when overwhelmed, but in an abusive dynamics, this kind of silence serves a different purpose. It's designed to exert control. It should also be said stonewalling and silent treatment often feel similar. Stonewalling shuts down dialogue and avoids accountability through coldness or dismissal. So when silent treatment is coupled with stonewalling, the purpose is skirting the topic at hand. It becomes very difficult to stay on track, at least in my experience, because you become so fixated on addressing the loss of connection and repairing the silence that you end up sacrificing yourself for the topic that brought up the silence in the first place. You may have confronted them on something that they did, and in your efforts to repair the silence, you minimize your own pain and they walk away scot free without a single repair on their part. Both silent treatment and stonewalling send the same message. You don't matter. Your voice doesn't count. Someone else decides when connection resumes. The psychological damage is significant. You're forced into the role of detective, the fixer, the one who seeks repair, even if you haven't caused the harm. You're still the one responsible for the repair, though one sided. You fawn to avoid silence, you shrink your voice, you minimize your needs, and when the silence ends, there's no resolution. It ends on their terms, often with you apologizing for something they did. The cruelty is in the withholding itself and in how effectively it convinces you that you caused it. Let's take a look at three of the most common ways the silent treatment shows up in relationships and how it manipulates your emotional state. The first is Bide My Time. Bide My Time is a form of silent treatment that is a calculated silence. The abuser disengages while preparing a response that shifts blame onto you. You're left doing the emotional labor, analyzing the conversation, searching for your mistake, questioning yourself. And during that silence, they construct a version of the story where you're the cause of the harm and they are the victim. When they do speak again, they arrive armed with all the evidence that they have concocted to shift blame directly onto you. In the TTI model, this is a stacked attack. It's the silent treatment followed by blame shifting. For the abuser, it serves a dual purpose. It gives them time to play their mental gymnastics for why they are not at fault. And in the process, it also punishes you for having spoken in the first place. What happens to you, though, during that silence is you start to soften. You've already started mentally apologizing for the withdrawal. You're feeling the pain of that withdrawal. And when you're soft enough, they use that vulnerability in you to reframe the narrative, putting themselves back in control. This is strategy, plain and simple. The silence gives them time to prepare while you're stuck second guessing everything. The second is silent punishment. Silent punishment is probably the most commonly known type of silent treatment. It's the emotional control through absence. The abuser disengages not to protect themselves, but to punish you for crossing a line they didn't explain. It might follow a disagreement, a need you expressed, or a boundary you tried to hold. Their affection, presence, and voice are suddenly withdrawn, replaced with distance and coldness. In the silence, you're left walking on eggshells trying to reconnect. You apologize even if you don't know why. You offer reassurance even when you're the one that is hurt by that action. The silence teaches you that connection depends on compliance. When they do start speaking again, it is after they are satisfied you have been punished enough, or when they feel that they may lose control if the silence goes on for too long. Nothing is addressed when they reconnect. In fact, in my experience, they seek an apology from you for having made them use the silent treatment on you. And you do, because you want to avoid that punishment again. If it happens frequently enough, you become conditioned to the punishment each time you raise a need, an issue, or a hurt. The silence may at times be erased, but the conditioning remains. You are taught to avoid disruption by staying small. The third is the silent spin. It's probably the least recognized form of silent treatment. This begins without warning. There's no clear trigger, just a sudden silence that comes out of nowhere that hijacks your emotional stability. You notice a shift in the energy. There's no good morning or no warmth, no eye contact. You ask what's wrong and you receive no answer. The silence becomes like this puzzle that you have to solve, and you're left being the only one trying to solve it. You start to cycle through everything you said and did, trying to find the fault, the reason for it. You might even start preempting apologies just in case. And you try to fix what you don't understand. And when they do finally re engage, there's no explanation that makes sense. They act as if nothing happened. The silence is never named, and you're still the one carrying it. You stay on edge knowing it can return at any moment. This one is hard to spot and hard to name. We are problem solvers, so we often seek to find a reason. And to be honest, we may just attribute one, even though it's not really correct. The abuser may even make up some sort of story of an imagined fault to ensure you are destabilized and fawning enough. But the real tactic here is the silence that comes from nowhere. It's designed to have you spinning for answers to a problem that does not exist, to destabilize your understanding of the relationship and the dynamic. Now, let's explore the experience for men in particular when it comes to the silent treatment. Many men are comfortable with silence. We grew up understanding silence meant things were stable. If there was no problem being shared, then everything was fine. So when a partner goes quiet, it doesn't always trigger alarm bells straight away. It just feels like space. But when you do start to couple this with a vague sense of something being wrong, for men it gets very confusing. We move into investigative mode. It's like a very unhelpful check engine warning light that comes up on your dash. You end up popping open the hood of the car and randomly tinkering with it, trying to figure out exactly what the issue is, fixing things that don't need fixing and getting frustrated that that check engine light is still flashing with no clue as to why. The confusion that you experience, that effort to find and fix a non existent problem, masks the recognition of what's really happening here. You don't realize that the silence itself is the tactic. There's no problem with the car, it's the check engine light coming on that's meant to mess with your head. In reality, you're being trained. You start adjusting your behavior to avoid silence. You soften words through tone, you rehearse sentences before speaking, not to avoid a fight, but to prevent disconnection. Because there's nothing concrete to respond to, no raised voice, no clear accusation, it messes with your instincts. You don't feel attacked, you feel like you've done something wrong. And that uncertainty puts you on the back foot. This isn't emotional distance, it's control without words. And it works by slipping under your radar, bypassing your defenses, and turning your instincts against you. Silent treatment is a tactic of control. It punishes through disconnection. It forces you into emotional labor. It shifts the burden onto you without ever naming what went wrong. When this becomes a pattern, it conditions how you move and how you respond. You hesitate before speaking. You anticipate moods before they shift. You take responsibility before you've even been accused. Each additional silent treatment becomes a further lesson that conditions you a little bit more. It teaches you that your needs are unsafe, that your voice can cause emotional withdrawal, that peace depends on your compliance. But every man deserves communication, clarity, and mutual respect, not silence used to cause pain, not withdrawal used to provoke guilt, not distance used to win control. If this resonated, please like the video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs it. You can also visit standagain.com.au for grounded, lived experience resources for male victims of family violence. You are not broken, you deserve respect, and you're not beyond repair. And no matter how many times you've been knocked down, you can stand again.